Hold on. Did you guys all get an alert? Yeah, Think About It Thursdays, powered by Restream. All right, we're on. As I said, Rabbi Lutz, we're just waiting on Rabbi Lutz, who's finishing a meeting. Let's see. All right, let's see where he is. We're going to talk and get to know Rabbi Lutz a little bit more if you don't know him very well. And also do some trivia about a subject that is very close, near and dear to his heart, which is aerospace engineering. And I have been doing some research because I don't know anything about it. So I have been doing a little bit of educating myself about space and aerospace engineering.
Hello, Temple Emmanuel of Beverly Hills.
All right, let's see if we got a live thing on, if we're live on the Emmanuel channel. Hold on. It's a little difficult to find. Let's see if you're here. Say hi. Hi, Marta. All right, some people are finding it. I can't even find us, but I found you. Good morning, Marta. And there's a couple other people on Facebook. Marta, did you get oh, there it is. It's on YouTube. But I found you. Okay, good morning, Marta. All right. There we go. Now I can feel confident that we're on. So what is new these days with everyone? What are you looking forward to? Is there going to be any pivot in your summer plans, I'm wondering? I personally am going to Lake Arrowhead for my Institute of Jewish Spirituality retreat a week from Sunday. It's all virtual. But my sister, who's in the program with me, is also coming with me so that we can do our virtually. It's a hybrid of a silent retreat, and so I'm very much looking forward to that, to spending time with her and to be out in the woods. Hold on, Rabbi Lutz is having trouble getting in here. Let's see if he gets in. I know less about any of this. All right, Judy Aronson, I'm reading your thing. I see Karen, I see Marta. I'll be staying home. Yes, well, Marta, we are going to be in a VRBO, but maybe there are some things that you can put into place to make it feel like summer. All right, he's here.
All right.
It's okay. We are live, I believe, on Facebook and YouTube. And you should be able to log into that little restream.
Let me do that.
Yes.
So we can chat with everyone. Well, almost everyone.
Yes, we're still, we are not the type of people that settle with just regular technology. So we keep working on.
For better or for worse.
For better or for worse, it might keep us up at night. But we are now using this Restream platform so that we can reach more people. So we have a bunch of people on Facebook.
Great.
And I told people that I've been educating myself about space. So
are you gonna know more than me now?
I might know more than you, whatever Dr. Google has taught me. And for people who are logged in right now, let us know if perhaps you have some weird space facts. We're not just going to do space. We're going to talk about Rabbi Lutz and his I don't know, maybe he dreams about space. Maybe we'll talk about your dreams.
Oh boy, it's going to be like a therapy session.
Good morning, Jay. I see you on YouTube. I'm sorry, I went live and said that it was Bim Bom Shabbat because you have to rename it on Restream. So then I stopped it.
Because usually when we're on together, it's Bim Bom Shabbat.
Yeah. I know. Well, Restream, you would think it would give you a little thing that says rename this, but it didn't.
It does on the OBS version of Restream.
Oh, well, yes, I have to learn OBS. Good morning, sis. Okay. I kind of feel like I have to take a deep breath. The breath gets harder. The breathing gets harder. Okay, so Rabbi Adam Lutz, you are going into your 4th year here at Temple?
Yeah, 4th year. Yeah.
Wow, time flies.
I know.
I like, by the way, when people come up to me and they think I'm 23, this is just like a funny fact. They think I'm 23 and I'm like, yeah, I like graduated college, went to 5 years of seminary, have worked here for 6 years, but I'm definitely 23.
Yeah. That's what people tell me too. And then I start listing off the degrees and they're like, how old are you?
Uh-oh, your sound just went like all echoey. That was weird. I don't know. Maybe it came back.
Oh, hang on.
Yeah, see, it's like you're in a stadium now.
Yes,
okay.
I just turned on OBS.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
Hi,
Dorothy Stolkin. Oh, hi, I'm Sharon. Sharon says, what is OBS? That is an online broadcasting system. Is that what it stands for?
I think it's, what does it stand for? OBS.
Essentially, it's a platform that allows you to broadcast from home and to
open broadcaster software.
Oh, I like mine. What did I say? Something broadcasting.
Online broadcasting system.
That makes sense for me.
Yeah. It sounds like a network or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's my online broadcasting system.
It's
so cool that I can see everybody.
It's a piece of software that I use. I don't know that anyone else uses it at Emmanuel, but other people use it across the board. It's like the #1 streaming platform or piece of software that we can use to do all sorts of fun things. It's actually what you see me using when I do Torah study on Saturday. It's how, like, in some images I get my head sort of in the corner of the screen with a nice background. It's how when we do Bim Bam Shabbat, Cantor, Weiss, and I are like able to like be right next to each other. It's a very cool little piece of software.
Everybody likes my definition more. Online broadcasting.
You should go to OBS. You should send them a ticket and say, hey, we think you should change your name. Cantor Weiss from Temple Emmanuel Beverly Hills suggests online broadcasting system. You guys should change it.
Yeah, but no, this has been such a learning curve for everybody, and the amount of phone calls I think specifically Rabbi Lutz and I have received from clergy and Jewish professionals around the country about how do you do this and how do you do that and how do you. I mean, I should get paid a consulting fee for the amount of phone calls that I'm sure both of us have received, and people want to know everything from like what microphone do you use to how do you know how to do this? And I would say, Raymond Zachary from the dentist chair. I just want to say, how do we know how to do this? I will repeat my answer, because we're not afraid to figure it out and to Google it. Half the stuff we do, you'll see Adam and I in a meeting, like Googling, like, how do I do this? Right.
It's actually, I talk about this with my brother who's just learning how to program and how to code software. It's so interesting. Like you learn like the basic like tools of like how to try things out, how to troubleshoot things. But then Google has like the answers for everything. I mean, it's the power of the online community actually in a really beautiful way, which is that like people have already learned and have been doing this. Like streaming is not a new thing, right? Like I've been using this example.
Let's do a trivia. Where has streaming and the OBS software been probably most developed over the last 15 years?
There you go.
What's the answer?
Yeah, video game streamers. And I've been talking about this since COVID started, is that like we need to be looking at places that do this really well. We do this funny thing in the Jewish world where we look inward. We're like, well, what's the Jewish thing that does this thing that we're trying to do? Like, what's the Jewish database system or what's the Jewish accounting system? Like, there aren't, the rest of the world doesn't exist, and there aren't actually accounting systems and database systems and streaming like approaches that actually are proven to work. Like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Right. So by the way, Restream Bot, which we have to figure out how to rename, is you guys are actually, if you're on YouTube, you're seeing what people are also writing on Facebook. So for example, where is one that came through? I don't know. When Marta, I think, first wrote, that says Facebook. Where is it coming up as Restream Bot? Let's see.
So where it comes up is actually on YouTube.
Oh, on YouTube, yeah.
What it does is it pushes the people's comments from Facebook over to YouTube. Unfortunately, YouTube or Facebook doesn't permit it to go the other direction.
Yeah.
So unfortunately on Facebook, you only see Facebook, but on YouTube, you actually can see people on Facebook and YouTube. And it's like you're having a conversation across platforms.
Yeah. So right now on YouTube, Marta, see how it says Facebook Marta Waller because failure is not an option, or from Helene Cohen, good morning. She actually wrote that on Facebook and you're seeing it on YouTube. So now everybody can like see all the people who are watching, and instead of just the people on YouTube or just the people on Facebook. Games are the first place where tech first is pushed forward, says Sharon. Like video games, Sharon, is that what you're talking about?
Well, so it's interesting, and actually this is very appropriate. Video games and space travel, right? Space travel, the fact that we have to, right? Like
the transition.
I did not plan that, right? But like part of the bummer of having our space program in the United States really defunded for the last almost decade is that, you know, when the human race needs to push itself to do something new. By the way, COVID is an interesting example of this. We're having to push ourselves to operate in ways we wouldn't normally operate, just like operating in zero gravity or in space isn't normally a normal operating way that we experience in the world. It pushes us to develop and to create. And so much of like what we know about today in technology was actually built in the 60s when we were trying to get to the moon. So it's a really, you know, and actually when you think about the technology too, like the technology on the spacecraft that got us to the moon, the phones in our pockets are like way more powerful than that spaceship at this point. So it's just interesting to
wow, that's crazy.
As it is.
Okay, so Rabbi Lutz, give us a 60-second, because we've all heard your I don't want to call it a spiel because I don't want to undermine it. By the way, I always like to ask, like, what coffee cup are you using? Do you have one?
I don't have a coffee. My coffee was consumed at about 6 this morning because Ruby woke up. So I'm on to Spindrift at this point.
Okay, I have a Broadway. A fact about Cantor Lizzie Weiss is that I tend to collect, not collect, but like I like to get coffee cups because then when you drink, it reminds you of that experience. I even have a Black Lives Matter cup because it's a good reminder every day, and because the proceeds go to a good cause.
Your coffee cups are more political than mine. We do the same thing.
Mine's usually Broadway shows.
So we collect Starbucks. We collect Starbucks cups from the places that we go. So you know how they have the special cup.
I have a friend who does that.
Yeah, so we have like Starbucks cups from like everywhere that we've been the last like 6 years.
They're cool. Okay, so this is a great transition because Sharon Baumgold says, I'm a huge proponent of space exploration. And also High Village took a tour of JPL about a year ago. I remember hearing about that. That's really awesome. I have to say, I never got that like space camp experience, but Rabbi Lutz, give us, first of all, your 60-second, what did you want to be when you were a kid? What did you end up being and how you became a rabbi?
Oh boy. 6 seconds to do all that? Okay.
I think you could do it.
All right. So when I was a really, really, really little kid, I wanted to be, like when I was 3, I wanted to be a firefighter. I did, I know. But I didn't want to be like a firefighter because I knew they had to go into the burning buildings and I was a cautious little child. So I wanted to be the chef at the fire station because I didn't think that they had to go in to fight that fires themselves, but then I could still be a firefighter. So that was stage 1.
So like stage 1 was I want to be a chef at a fire station.
That's correct. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. And that doesn't, as I only know from my deep experience watching Chicago Fire, don't they rotate? Like, don't the...
Yeah, but a 3-year-old doesn't know that. So
okay, that's hysterical.
That was stage 1. Then stage 2 was I got really into trains. So I wanted to be a train engineer. So I suppose that was the beginning of my engineering days.
Okay.
And then I was always really good at math and science. Like I finished my high school math in 11th grade. Like I had taken AP Calc, AB, BC, AP Stats, all by 11th grade. And then in 12th grade, I was onto college math and I was taking college classes at like Moore Park Community College and CSUN, which was great because then I got to transfer those to UC San Diego, which is where I went for undergrad. And it was a natural transition to engineering. Because I had to decide. I remember I was deciding between mechanical engineering and aerospace engineering, and I decided on aerospace because like planes and rockets are way cooler than cars. So I went.
I've heard that engineering as a whole is like the most high pressure major you can go into.
It is near impossible to finish it in 4 years. I did have to do summer classes one summer to finish it, but it's crazy because the majority of the classes are I was taking anywhere between 4 and 7 classes a quarter to be able to finish, and none of them are that easy. Like, I definitely didn't get straight A's in college.
It also, just as like a side fact, as you know, my nephew Abraham he just majored in physics and is doing a 1-year addition to get his master's in physics through this crazy program that he's a part of. And what he explained to me when I was trying to figure out, he's very into, hi, Patty.
Hey, Patty. My childhood Cantor.
Yes. Childhood Cantor and a beloved colleague. When I asked my nephew Abraham, who maybe will be able to be a guest here because he's coming to visit, but when I asked him what the difference between an engineer and a physicist was, because he could have done either side of it, he kind of, I think he explained to me that a physicist is on the larger side of figuring problem solving, right? Or asking the questions, whereas an engineer is figuring out how to answer the questions. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Engineering is more like applied physics. I mean, obviously physicists do like tests and things like that. They're really involved in really pushing, theoretical physics. Like, how does the universe work? And then testing it, theorizing it, and seeing if that's true or not. And engineering is more about sort of what's the practical piece of this that we actually need to incorporate into our lives? Like, how do you put a plane in the air? What do you do when a plane gets damaged? Like, how do you fix a damaged plane and not compromise its structural integrity? That's primarily what I worked on when I was working on F-18s. Right, like those. All right,
so let's get there. But which, by the way, the last project that I asked my nephew what he was working on was he was working at an internship in Florida for one of the largest water and power companies, and they're actually he always thought he would go into nonprofit because he has a very high ethical sense of. But they are one of the top leaders in helping climate change, and so one of his projects was figuring out the exact place for a solar power panel to go in like Antarctica. At what angle? Is it a split one? That's what he was working on based on statistics. So people are doing some crazy stuff out there. It's not a fluke when you just see at the top of Taft High School, when you see all of their, solar panels. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's all very intentionally designed and planned. And Cantor Weiss, you could attest to this, and everyone else who knows anything about me knows that, like, I am intentional to a fault many times, and a planner to a fault in many ways too. But
you froze with your mouth open.
Oh no, that's not.
You're okay now. Yes, Rabbi Lutz and I are it's interesting. Our goals are the same. Our executions are very different. I'm kind of like this is my vision. Let's figure out how to get it done. And he's like, this is my journey. We'll see what happens in the end. So there's pros and cons to that. And we work together on that. All right. So you ended up majoring your actual major was in what?
Aerospace engineering.
Aerospace engineering. And then what happened?
So then I got a job working for the Navy. I worked at a North Island Naval Base on Coronado. I really couldn't have asked for a better spot in the world to get a job. And I worked there for 3 years, and about halfway, and actually while I was doing that, I got a master's in engineering, specifically in advanced structural materials. So like the master's is actually, while
you were working at the Navy, you got another master's in advanced.
I got my first master's in advanced structural materials. I specialize in what's called a composite material. Which is what I worked on F-18s. Composite materials are like anyone who plays tennis or golf or drives a Corvette. The graphite, the woven graphite, that's a composite material. And in other words, like a composite material is a material made up of many different materials. Like a tree is actually a composite material. Our bones in our bodies are composite materials.
Wait, so you got a major in composite materials?
I have a master's in advanced structural composites, or advanced structural materials, when I specialized in composites.
Crazy.
So, right, it's all about like, how do materials work, which is really important as an engineer. Like, you need to know how materials work, because if I'm going to choose to build something out of steel, versus titanium versus aluminum versus a bunch of materials sort of smushed together like a sandwich, I need to know how they work. And what's very cool about this, at least I thought was I still think it's very cool. I'm going to geek out here for a minute. In composite materials, unlike steel, right? If you have a piece of steel, it has the same strength in all directions. What's really cool about composite materials is you actually can design the strength in any direction, which means that if you know where the strength needs to be, I can design a material that's way more lightweight because I don't need to now have all that extra material in the directions where I don't need it to be strong. So
you actually learn how to, I mean, you're figuring out like on a computer how to create it, but are you actually making the materials as a part of your
process? So we worked with artisans in our shop. So I, as the engineer, I would not only design the material, but I would design the process by which the material needed to be made. And by the way, you bake these things in like these gigantic ovens that go up to like thousands of degrees on like, huge amounts of pressure. But the artisans would put them together, and they were very skilled at building these things that I would design.
And these are like engineering artisans. Does that make sense? Like, is there like a specific major just for people who do that?
A lot of these guys are, I don't know, it's very much like a mechanic's shop. When you walk down, you go to the shop, but they're way higher level than like your car mechanic, right? They have to. Imagine you have like a really thin piece of paper. That's essentially what a composite material is. It's a very thin piece of graphite that has woven fibers in it. And you have to orient the fibers in a particular direction. And actually the angle matters. So they have to be very fine with their own motor skills and their dexterity to be able to put these things together. And then they have to follow the process exactly correct in order to produce a material that has the correct strength. Otherwise, you have to redo it.
Okay, so this was so interesting that you were like, I'm going to become a rabbi instead.
So I really liked my job. I actually really liked being an engineer. I never didn't like it. I love the people that I work with. Actually, it was where I learned that like the people you work with is like the most important piece of any job, which is why I love working at Temple Emmanuel. But basically, in just a couple sentences, I would come home and I would be like, is this it? Is this what I'm doing with my life? I'm going to do this. And it just wasn't fulfilling. I wanted to do something that, where I could feel like I could be my whole self, not just like as an intellectual person, but like an emotional person and a spiritual person. And when I thought about the moments in my life where all three of those things were true, that I could be intellectual and spiritual and emotional, they were all Jewish moments. It was my bar mitzvah. I was going to camp. I was an API in college. And then I was like, wait, this is what I love to do. Why don't I just spend my life doing that?
Let's also note that your dad is a rabbi.
Which is why I didn't want to be a rabbi.
Right. For a lot of us that happens. But I think it would be interesting to get the statistics on how many clergy come from lines of whether it's aunts or uncles or parents who were clergy, because I do think that that having influences that are often your family is the biggest thing that makes you become clergy, because otherwise it's a very unknown career in so many ways. Okay, first of all, Marta, you win funny prize. I thought learning to fold a fitted sheet. For the record, there's few things in life, I shouldn't say few things. There's many things in life that I'm not good at, and folding a fitted sheet is one of those. It's just, I'm going to say that I'm too short. Okay. All right.
It's my job in my house to do that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's just that I have a lot of patience for technology. I do not have a lot of patience for like things you do with your hands in the house. So anyway, all right. So I did look up some facts, but so then you went to rabbinical school and the rest is history.
There was a brief exploration between engineering and rabbinical school where I thought about going to culinary school.
And you worked tell everybody.
I did work at Spago for one day to sort of try it out. I cooked for the Academy Award after party that HBO was having at Spago in the pastry kitchen. And it was fun. But then I talked to a lot of chefs and they told me how their hours were. And I was like, well, I want a family. I don't really want to be working at 3 a.m.
So like the most successful chefs are getting up to do the shopping themselves sometimes.
Like the family work balance as a chef, like we think it's bad as clergy. I think chef has got to be the worst.
Yeah, you can't bring your kid into the kitchen and
no. So it's a hobby of mine. So there's something I get to do. Like I bake bread, I bake challah. Like it's fun. Like you've seen my Instagram.
I have seen your Instagram. I don't know if everyone else has, but you could
go check out my Instagram. I think I'm
Lutz 33. I actually just sent it to someone this morning for Genesis. All right, but actually, before we get to the funny facts that I found, actually, I don't know that they're funny, but when Rabbi Lutz came in, I mean, we each had different experiences growing up in the Jewish world, and even though their life has really changed, even since we were kids. I remember feeling overprogrammed as an 8-year-old, and that doesn't even apparently like match up at all to what kids are doing today. And I think it's really, really hard because I felt very lucky to grow up in a household where I was just given opportunity to explore without an expectation of you're taking voice lessons, so that means this is what you are going to be in life. My parents really, with triplets and with 2 older siblings, were like, reach for the stars and see what happens. And the biggest lesson that they would teach me is use your God-given and built skills to make money. For example, like I was into tech. I was kind of like a techie in high school. And so I was then able to, in college, have a job for $30 an hour doing sound for the church that rented out my old high school auditorium, like things like that, where I had friends who were working for $6 an hour at a grocery store. So I wanted to say that's one big thing. But when Rabbi Lutz started working with me, I had started to try and work on a concept of a conservatory. And then we realized between our 2 sides, with his science and space and math background and my performing arts background, that we really wanted to think about the kind of kids that we want to grow at Temple Emmanuel and the kind of nurturing that we want to do. And my one line, and then I'll kind of turn it over to Adam. I'd love to hear your line too, but my one line is like, you're not just Jewish, on Friday night or at Sundays at Hebrew school, but how can we integrate Judaism into the skills that you discover at a very young age? So therefore we started to create Genesis. Do you remember the first name we came up with?
The first name before Genesis?
It wasn't that different.
It was J-Steam, wasn't it?
We had J-Steam, which is Jewish
STEAM.
Science, technology,
engineering, arts, and math. Yeah.
Right. But then we called it Generate, and we were like really into that for a while. And then all of a sudden somebody, Alex Kaufman, who used to work, said Genesis. And we were like, yes, like the beginning of everything. So we love it. And it has been a labor of love and very difficult. And
well, so it's so interesting, right? And this actually, this is an interesting thing to talk about, I think. And before I even go there, I think the important thing for me, of course, like everyone's going to get sort of inside Rabbi Lutz's brain right now, which is a scary place to be sometimes. But it's like, for me as a rabbi and an educator, I'm like, how did my journey work? Like, how did I get to this place where Judaism became such an important part of my life? And I think it was always that Judaism for me was foundational. It was like the foundation upon which I could build the house of my life. It supported me. It was the structure. It actually connected all of these different identities that I have. Like, I'm a musician. I am an engineer. I'm a chef, right? Like, and how do I combine all of those things? And for me, it was always Judaism that allowed me to bring all of those pieces of me together. So then if I'm reverse engineering what education looks like, in education, the question is always, what's your end goal? What are you trying to get to? How do you know that the kids have learned what you want them to learn? So then, of course, then the question is, okay, well, say a kid has been successful and gone through Jewish education and they become an adult. Obviously, their Jewish learning will continue, but what's the skill or the tool that they should learn in order to say, okay, that was a successful education? And for me, the tool has been, how do I use Judaism in my real life? If I'm going to grow up to be an artist or a lawyer or an engineer or a doctor, how do I understand that through a Jewish lens? And how then does that Jewish lens give me meaning, additional meaning to whatever it is that I'm doing? So that's what we want to teach the kids. But in order to do that, we have to start with what they care about. I don't know that many kids, at least in our world, they don't come in being like, tell me the story of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're like, why am I here on Sunday mornings? I really would like to be playing soccer, or I'd really like to be doing violin lessons, or I'd like to be building robotics, or I'd like to be acting and singing and dancing. But of course, all of those things, none of them are Jewish per se, but like we can teach them through a Jewish lens. There's all sorts of delicious Jewishness that we can incorporate. And by the way, if we as Jewish leaders, I'm totally on my soapbox right now. If we as Jewish leaders want to show that Judaism is relevant in the 21st century, it cannot live on its own in some isolated box. It has to be able to incorporate into life. Otherwise, what's the point? Okay.
And what I would say, I'm going to put you on the spot with this question. Why should people care that their violin or their robotics is infused with the Jewish lens?
I mean, listen, they don't necessarily need to care, but for me, it's about weaving the identities together, right? These kids don't have one identity. They're not just violin. It's why STEAM education is so interesting, is because like we used to think left brain and right brain were bifurcated. It was like, okay, you're either artsy or you're techie. But you hear about me telling my story about what I had to do as an engineer. I had to design and create every single day that I was working as an engineer. I had to come up with outside the box ideas. That's right. That's all right brain, right? I think we know that actually most of these kids today, and we have some data around this in Genesis, is when I sent out a survey and I said, basically like, would your kids like to do theater or art? I mean, theater and art or robotics and like computers. And most said both, right? So kids have both of these identities. So then the question is, how do you weave these identities together? And for me, Judaism does that. Judaism is that thing that allows us to have a whole neshama, a whole like, sense of being and soul to bring all of these disparate pieces of ourselves together.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think there's so much just the change in careers for people. I mean, the same thing that you said, like people could think that I'm just kind of an emotional kind of singer person, right? But like Adam knows that maybe 5% of my job, I'm trying to give myself more time, but it's spent on that artistic side. And the majority of it is spent on the logistics and technology to be able to express my artistic side in the most fluid way. That's an interesting thing. Also with Rabbi Aaron, who edits film, is that when we've interviewed a lot of people around the country, or they've asked us, well, who does your liturgy PowerPoints and who does your videos? And we're like, we do. Right. Like we literally do all of it. Right. Because for me, if I write a Hashkivenu song, I want to also be a part of how it gets put out into the world. And that's been a major change. I know definitely with Rabbi Lutz and I coming in is we don't just create a program and then turn it over to somebody and say, can you do all the marketing for this program? Or, I mean, we don't necessarily have that type of staff to be able to do that, but also you're never going to get the same message out as if one that you create yourself. So whether it's an email or whether it's a video, whether it's the doodle videos that Rabbi Lutz has created for Genesis, if you guys have seen those where it looks like someone's writing, my biggest message for kids is like to be as holistic, authentic of a person. And by the way, I just want to say one last thing before I start quizzing Rabbi Lutz, which is that every person is different. Rabbi Bassin, who is doing really well with her new baby, she has like a whole other set of amazing skills, and it's technology is not necessarily her thing, although she actually edited some Pride videos and she's doing really well. But she will pick up the phone and say to us, like, how can I help with this or that? And I think that's the kind of person that we're trying to create is, maybe website design is not my skill and I'm of a developed enough person to call and say, can I do extra phone calls to congregants just to help you? So I think that's why we all feel really blessed to be a part of the Temple Emmanuel team, because we all are developed creatures who recognize our flaws and also what we have to offer. Thank you, Patty. Your congregation is blessed in so many ways. We appreciate it. All right, Rabbi Lutz, here we go.
Oh boy.
Here's the problem. Sometimes I don't even know what to Google. I asked you last time, like, what should, all right. So
it's an important skill set actually to learn how to search. It's a very important tool.
I've gotten much better at you can, when you Google like strangest facts in the world, there's the same 6 websites that come up. And now I'm on week like 10 of this, so I can't do that anymore.
Oh boy.
But what I did think was I'm going to start kind of macro and then bring it in. So a 747, what is a 747? Tell everybody.
It's a Boeing airplane. Okay.
Do you know how many parts? And we can do some trivia. How many parts does a 747 have? Let's see if anybody writes in. Everybody can take some guesses.
What are we counting as a part? Like, are we going down to nuts and bolts here?
We are going down to, yes, screws and bolts, literally.
What about composite materials? Or are we including all the materials that make up composite materials?
It includes screws, bolts, fasteners. So I would assume so. Yes. Actually, now I don't know when you're talking about.
Sounds like not actually.
Oh really? Well, I don't know.
They would consider it as one piece.
I'll read you the fact in a second, but like, are you saying like if it's a composite material made of 3 things, does that count as 1 or 3?
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
I think they're counting it as 3. Let's see. Is anybody guessing?
Nobody's guessing yet.
All right. Well, let's see your first guess, Rabbi Lutz.
It's got to be in the billions, would be my guess.
Billions.
I mean, if you're counting every nut, I'm trying to think. So on an F-18.
Okay, so maybe in that case, it's still a very high number, but I think you're right.
Let me think. On an F-18, you had on just the wing. On each wing, you had. Let's see. There was 1,500. You had like 3,000. It was something like probably close to 10,000 fasteners on just the wings.
Okay,
so maybe not in the billions.
Take one more guess, and we have one guess coming in.
I don't know. 100 million.
Oh, okay. So Marta says about 6 million. I had to know this answer when I was at KTLA. Hal Fisher was an airplane person, and actually, you're basically right, Marta. A 747 has more than 6 million parts. It says a typical car has 30,000 parts, including the screws and bolts. But if you think that's a lot, you'll probably be surprised to learn that a 747 400-passenger airliner has a jaw-dropping 6 million parts. Of those 6 million, about half consist of fasteners.
It's not surprising.
What is a fastener?
Like a nut and a bolt.
Like a nut and a bolt. Okay. All right, Marta, you win. Marta,
well done, Marta.
You have to come on and be a guest because, you have a really interesting past. I think it would be interesting for you to come on and present, I should say. Okay, according to Engineering by Stanzione Cadon al. in 1989, the term aerospace engineering first appeared. Do you know when that title was given? Like that category? In what year?
Aerospace engineering? I don't know, in the 50s?
Yep. 1958.
Makes sense.
It was a compound word borrowing the word aerospace, which refers to combination of the Earth's atmospheres and outer space. In that same year, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, was founded. Oh, is that how you knew?
I didn't know that there was a relationship, but I was just thinking about when space became like a big thing, and that was in the 50s.
Do you think that aerospace engineering professionals are high in demand?
I think so. I mean, look at what's going on with Elon Musk and SpaceX. I mean, there's an amazing amount of opportunity there. Do you want to go to space, by the way? Would you be one of those civilians who would see? Look, you're too scared. I hate roller coasters.
It's like you with the fire, with the fire station wanting to be
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm cautious. I've always been. Just ask Emma. I'm cautious.
Wait, do you not? I don't really like roller coasters either. Do you really not like roller coasters?
I don't like the drops on the.
Me too.
I don't like the feeling of your stomach in your mouth.
Yes. So like
I like going fast. I like going on in circles.
Yes.
So like I go on every ride at Disneyland except for Splash Mountain.
Me too. We just discovered this.
And Tower of Terror. Those are the two I won't go on.
Wait, that's so true. Like I love Thunder Mountain Railroad. I love Space Mountain. But Splash Mountain, like why does anybody like that feeling?
I don't know. And then you get soaking wet. And who wants to walk around Disneyland soaking wet?
Oh, so were you that kid who also was like, oh, I don't want to get my hands wet?
I don't know. Getting wet, I don't care about that. It's just the drop. I don't like I hate Six Flags. Six Flags is ugh. I never go there.
Six Flags is ugh. Yeah. I actually went on California Screamin', which I think they renamed. It's at Disney.
Yeah, it's turning in. They did it's Incredicoaster.
Incredicoaster. Well, I actually went on that a couple times, and I went with when my nephew was young because he just loves roller coasters. It's weird how like my nephew who's now turning 14, he was afraid of a lot of things, but for some reason roller coasters were like an adrenaline rush to him. Dorothy says I can't even go on a Ferris wheel and I get dizzy on a merry-go-round, and fast elevators are the word.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the one that takes you to the top of the Empire State Building.
Yeah, that's a lot. But I do think it's interesting about roller coasters because there must be like a gene. Like I really wonder if there's a gene for like who likes roller coasters and who doesn't. I know that sounds weird, but like why? Why do some people like that feeling and some people don't? To me, it's like spicy food. You know, it's like why do some people, I can't do spicy food, I can hardly do a Tic Tac. And then there's people who like love that feeling of like, and I'm like, doesn't your tongue hurt? And you're like, no, it's just flavor.
We should ask a psychologist. My guess is it's in a psychology somewhere.
Really? You think it's okay? By the way, this one's like a weird one. The number 5 of 6 facts is aerospace engineers need a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
Doesn't that seem obvious?
Yeah.
It says, like other professionals, however, aerospace engineering requires schooling. Typically, aerospace engineers need a bachelor's degree in aerospace engineering. With that said, however, some universities offer a space-focused engineering classes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to know how the world works in order to like build things in it.
I know that was a weird fact for a website that only lists 6. Okay. Now, okay. I'm on a new site now that has 46 facts. So in 2017, that some of this is like about how many kids are really interested in becoming astronauts. So I actually, when I was doing this research, I was wondering, so you never wanted to be an astronaut? No.
I think being in space would be really cool. I'd like to be in space if I could remove the strapping yourself to a bomb and going at 8 G's.
Dropping yourself to a bomb. By the way,
think about it. That's what a rocket. That's what it is. It's a gigantic bomb. Yeah,
okay.
That's crazy.
Sharon says engineers don't need master's degrees.
No, you don't.
What happens? You get your bachelor's and then you go into like trade schooling.
No, you don't. There's no. What's interesting about an engineering degree is the trade school piece is built into it. So you actually come out with a very practical skill set and way of thinking that then you apply wherever you get to wherever you're going. And then people who get masters in engineering, like any master's degree, it's about a specialty. So you're doubling down on whatever thing you want to specialize in. In my case, it was materials because I worked on materials.
Oh, Marta, one of the great sadnesses of my life is that I'm too old to qualify to go into space. You never know. She says, I'd love that ride. Marta, do you like roller coasters? I'm just wondering. And engineering degree equals bachelor's of science equals job ready. Okay, that's interesting. And I think that also comes down to like the type of person who can get through your bachelor of science or an engineering degree. Okay, so I'm gonna work backwards. In 1978, there were 8,000 applications to join NASA's first astronaut class. Okay. In Marta, I've flown in an F-16, loved every second.
That is so cool.
Rabbi Lutz would never want to do it, but
I actually probably would. I don't know. Would I go in when I get into a fighter jet? Oh, I might just for this, just to say that I had flown in one. I have here. I'll show you. I just downloaded this. I have a picture of me sitting in an F-18.
By the way, Marta, you're giving us more reason to want to interview you on Think About It Thursday.
I gotta hang on. Let me flip. I gotta turn on my other camera. So you're gonna lose me for just a hot second.
Okay. He's gonna show us a picture.
Yeah.
Judy, I saw your comment, Rabbi rolling his eyes. Uh-oh, I don't know what that was about.
It was about engineers needing a degree.
Oh.
Like, obviously. Hang on, I have like way too much stuff open on my computer. Okay, let's keep talking while I do this.
I'll do this fact. So in 2017, how many people applied to join NASA's astronaut class in 2017?
What was the number before?
Well, in 1978, it was 8,000. So in 2017, how many people do you think applied? It's not necessarily correlated, but
100,000.
No, it's actually much lower, 18,000.
That's so interesting.
So, but however, they only allow in, the selection process for NASA takes 18 months and thousands of applications received. How many individuals will get the opportunity to actually become an astronaut? Does anybody know?
Like out of that number, or?
Yeah, I think it's out of that number, of that 18,000 that apply. How many ultimately are able to follow through?
5.
Yeah, it's 8 to 14.
Yeah.
It's still low. Dorothy says, listening to this enlightening discussion, now I understand why I got a BS in kindergarten, primary education, and a master in social. That's why I got a BA in theater. Judy says, 4 generations of structural engineers in my family. I have none of those genes. But you are also an educator, Judy. So there you go. You guessed 10, Sharon. Yeah, it's 8 to 14 actually become an astronaut. But once selected, applicants are still not considered full astronauts. They face 2 years of basic training where they're then considered astronaut candidates. One more fact before you share.
Oh, should I turn it off?
No, it's okay. Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Talk about that.
So this is me in an F-18. This is the last week that I was working for the Navy. This is what I worked on. I worked on these planes. They set up a special
that's awesome.
Visit for me to actually go sit in one that's put together. Usually when I was in or on them, they were taken apart in some capacity. So this one was on the flight line, just ready to be tested after it had gone through a bunch of repairs. And it was fun. It's actually funny when you sit in them. There are all these like do not pull like cords because the roof, the canopy, and the seat, everything is got rockets on it, because when you hit the eject button, it's all rocket powered. So if you pull any of them, an explosion would go off. And there actually were stories of people accidentally like grabbing one with their foot or something like that, and then they're working on it, and then of course that's very dangerous because then you get your head hit on something, or it's not a great situation. But this was fun. I got to sit in a
really cool
version of this plane.
I don't know. You might need to get that hair back.
I'm working on it. It was way short. I didn't have a beard then either.
Did you? This is like a weird thing. Like in your daily work, is this like a you'd have to wear a button up and slacks? Or are you in like work like?
No, because we went into the shop all the time and we were climbing on airplanes and getting on the floor and things like that. It was basically like jeans and a polo.
Okay. Just fun fact. What do you wear?
Only conferences and stuff like that would you get dressed up.
What is the one language that all astronauts are required to speak?
You mean like verbal language?
Yep.
English?
Apparently Russian.
Interesting.
It says astronauts spend hours learning to read and speak Russian. Spoken fluency is necessary for safety reasons, and passing a competency test is required for NASA.
Well, it's because they've been flying. Now they're almost flying exclusively on Russian rockets.
Wow. So Russia really did win the space contest.
We're not done. We're not done yet.
Shauna had to wear work boots at her first engineering.
We had steel-toed boots that we would wear when we would go into the shops.
And this is in Coronado, right?
On Coronado, yeah. The
In
north
Coronado?
end of Coronado Island is a Navy base.
Do you know what a vomit comet is?
You know what a vomit comet is. Yeah, it's
You want to explain what that
zero gravity simulation. You go up really, really high in an airplane, and then the airplane goes nosedive down to simulate. Basically, you reach terminal velocity on the inside, which for people is about 120 miles an hour. Where, like, if you were to jump off a building and you had enough time to pick up speed, you hit what's called terminal velocity, which is when the air resistance matches. You can no longer beat air resistance. You hit a maximum speed. It's about 120 miles an hour as a human being. But so you're going basically that speed down, and then you're floating in the airplane.
Oh man, that's like, no, thank you. If you look up, I'm on factinate.com. If anybody wants to look these up, 45 world facts about astronauts.
I'm not an astronaut.
I know. But it's interesting to you, right?
Of course.
Astronauts can be quite clumsy when they return from a long stay on the International Space System. They have reported dropping objects like pens and keys because they're not used to holding things in zero gravity.
True. And
have you ever done a zero gravity?
Their muscles atrophy a little bit too. I've never done a zero gravity simulator.
Would you want to?
Like the ones like that you like go in and there's like the wind and they like push you up and things like that. Yeah, sure, why not?
Oh, by the way, that's a good step. What's it called? Air, like they had a Universal City Walk where you could go in. But that one's like air pushing you up. It's not really a. But
it's the same idea, right? The physics are exactly the same. It's 120 miles an hour of wind. I mean, this is what's so interesting about physics.
Yeah.
And partly of what's actually interesting to me about theology too, and philosophy is when you study the equations of physics, there are very few equations actually in physics that govern, general the way the world generally works. When you get into like cosmology and quantum, like you get into other crazy spaces, but like there's like really not that many formulae. And then what's also interesting about it is that they are very similar across the different branches of physics. So like electricity and magnetism formulas are kind of similar to fluid flow and fluid dynamics formulas, which are similar kind of to like Newton's laws and things like the structures of the formulas are very similar, even though they are talking about different parts of the world and how the universe works. And then what gets so interesting, this is the piece that I find so interesting, and many physicists do, is that the laws, the laws that govern gigantic bodies like galaxies and planets.
Mm-hmm.
If you apply those laws to the things that are very tiny, like atoms and like quantum physics, they don't work. This is one of the big challenges that physicists are trying to solve, which is, that one unified equation that can explain everything.
Right.
That's where you get into these like weird, they're called non-logical theories, like string theory and like multiple dimensions and things like that.
Who's with us right now?
But right, it's about asking and searching for the same questions, which is like, why are we here? What's our purpose? How does everything work? Which is the same business that religion is involved in, although religion doesn't look at it from, say, the physical aspect. We look at it from the emotional and the spiritual. So, but we need to mesh all of those things, right? You can't ignore what we learn in science when you're talking about theology, because then you're living in a world that is not cohesive.
Exactly. And yeah. Okay. So I have 3 more facts before we end that are just like silly, but things we might not have thought about. For example, the title of this is Windshield Wipers Are a Thing, which is sneezing in a spacesuit is a delicate matter. Who would have ever thought about this? Yeah. Like what happens if you sneeze and you have like a shield over your face?
That's an important question.
It says astronauts have to learn to lean their heads forward and sneeze into their chests to prevent it from splattering all over their visor.
Interesting.
They're thinking about what knob to pull and then also where to sneeze. Like there's a lot to think about up there.
That is yeah.
Another thing I never knew is apparently when you have gravity helping you, you have to pee usually when your bladder is about 1/3 full. But when you're in space, gravity is not giving you that sensation. So the astronauts are actually trained to go to the bathroom every 2 hours, no matter what.
That is so interesting. Here's a fun fact about gravity too. So, this blew my mind when I learned this. So, when we talk about space, we're talking about the space. You've heard the space-time continuum, right?
Yes.
So if you imagine the way space works is it's like a gigantic blanket sort of spread out. And the way gravity works is it's about the size of a mass in that space-time continuum. So imagine dropping a bowling ball on a quilt that's taut, right? What does it do? It depresses, right? It compresses and it makes a big well. Yes. That's called a gravity well. So actually that's why gravity is different on different planets, because it's about the mass of the planet and how much space that planet takes in space-time. So actually what we're all doing right now is we're falling. We're falling into that gravity well. And the only thing that's preventing us from going into that hole in the space-time continuum is the planet. And that's how gravity works. I think it's really interesting.
That's why, like, there's so many people who will, talk about God versus, science. And for me, like, I truly believe in that the only way that this concept, right, about like different types of gravity on different planets, and the fact that we can be sitting or standing here today without feeling gravity, to me, is only something that some sort of God or energy could have created. So I'm not saying that science isn't real. It is. I just think it came from God and then science, and then as opposed to science. So everybody has different, but that's just my take. I'm going to do two more facts. Number one, you can't eat like crumbly bread because in space, because it'll damage stuff. Just a funny fact. And the last one, and this doesn't have to do with, this is not on my sheet that I was doing, but did you know that pilots and co-pilots on like big flights, like we're talking about, big international flights, that the pilot and the assistant pilot have to eat 2 different meals in case of food poisoning? Just an interesting fact. You never think about that. I mean, I think that's an interesting
it's very important, right? You don't want them both to get food poisoning. That would be bad for everyone else.
Yes. So Rabbi Lutz, thank you so much. I mean, I think we could have talked for another hour, and we'll do this again maybe in the fall. And thank you everybody who participated. You can also share the YouTube link or share the Facebook link. And now we have, I don't know, about 10 Think About Thursdays to enjoy. So thank you, Rabbi Lutz. I appreciate you taking the time to be with us today.
Thanks for having me.